There are certain cities in the United States that seem to draw more than their share of admirers. San Diego is one of those towns. Only 1.2 million people inhabit this other city by the bay, but 13 million visitors flock to it every year. Many call it America's finest city. Locals will happily direct you to the location of the most inviting and picturesque corners. Topping the list of must-see spots is the magical island of Coronado, perched across the bay from San Diego's downtown. This incorporated town of 30,000 inhabitants is home to one of the world's most famous resorts, the Hotel del Coronado. It is where the author L. Frank Baum found his inspiration to pen the 1900 classic, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. And shining just a block away from this emerald city of a resort, another architectural jewel, the Crown Manor. Tucked safely away behind high stone walls and thick vegetation, seemingly oblivious to the sand, salt, and seawater splashing just beyond its gates, exists a special house with a unique place in San Diego history, one that dates back to the turn of the century. Having survived 5 very different owners over nearly a 100-year lifespan, its story is part of San Diego history. It is the legacy of Coronado's Crown Manor. In 1880, things were booming out west. The word had gone out. There was land for sale in Southern California. Enthusiastic Easterners and Midwesterners swarmed westward by the thousands. The population of San Diego swelled from 5,000 people in 1885 to 40,000 in 1887. While San Diego was bustling, a mile across the bay, the peninsula of Coronado seemed to take no notice at all. It was a wild patch of sagebrush-covered land, serving only to hold back the sea from the harbor. 2 newcomers, Elijah Babcock and his partner H.L. Story, would often row over to the barren island to hunt and dream. With typical 19th century American optimism, they decided to buy the whole peninsula. They would have parcels of land to finance their vision, the construction of a glorious hotel resort right on the beach, the Hotel del Coronado. Construction began on January 12, 1887. Barely a year later, the doors to their hotel were opened.
You wish to create a hotel that would attract the rich and the powerful from around the country, if not the world, but not just any hotel. A Victorian masterpiece of a hotel. What else would attract people here? But Mr. Babcock saw the potential. They came, they populated it, beautiful Victorian women, men dressed in their finery, the children scampering around, probably a little uncomfortable and trying to get onto the beach, and yet it was very elegant.
Babcock lured the Reed brothers to San Diego to design and build his hotel. They in turn hired Cornell-trained architect William Hebard. He brought on an architect apprentice from Chicago, who later became famous for creating the quintessential Southern California architectural style. His name was Irving Gill.
He's our legendary historical architect. I think he was the design genius. He really understood the early designs that they produced, which were mostly English, sort of Elizabethan or Tudor style. He understood that very well.
Irving Gill is an interesting man because he was what we would call a dandy of that period. He was very social. He liked to dress well. He liked to go to gala occasions. That was part of his role in working for Will Hebard. He was kind of the front man. He was the ladies' man who would go out and get the contracts.
While socializing at the hotel, architect Irving Gill met an interesting Midwesterner, Bartlett Richards. J. Bartlett Richards was a wealthy Nebraska cattleman and banker who had come to vacation with his family at the hotel. The year was 1900. In March of 1901, the Richards announced their intent to build a Hebert and Gill designed home on Coronado Beach lots 13 to 16. Just a stone's throw from the Hotel Del and right across from the Pacific Ocean, it was to be the largest and perhaps most spectacular house on the peninsula. A 13,000 square foot English Tudor mansion, typical of the Hebert and Gill architectural style, it was completed in November of 1902. Built as a vacation home, Richards quickly moved his family to the Coronado residence in November of 1903, hoping to protect them from the scandal and publicity that was about to break. Richards was well known in Nebraska and Wyoming in the early 1890s. He had made a huge fortune in land and cattle, but ran afoul of the Theodore Roosevelt administration in a struggle over land laws. Richards was accused, tried, and convicted of fencing in land that was not rightfully his. His light sentence caused an uproar in the White House, and instructions went out to make an example of Richards. 7 years of new trials and appeals resulted in a new and heavier sentence. Bartlett Richards spent the next year of his life in jail and died there in September of 1911 at the age of 59. After his death, his family remained in residence on Ocean Boulevard until July of 1913, when his widow sold the home and property to Florence Kennett Dupuy. Florence Dupuy was a social leader and philanthropist. She opened the house for war-related fundraising events. Her gala parties were well known and well recorded in the society pages of the Times. Her husband, Walter H. Dupuy, was perhaps the estate's most colorful occupant. A successful businessman, he had a passion for horses and the game of polo. So obsessed was he with the game, he added another 13,000 square feet of space, doubling the size of the mansion.
They added a wing to the east side, and that wing was to accommodate the polo teams that Mr. Dupuy would bring here from all over the world. Teams from Canada, from Australia, from England, from Italy, from all over would come, 4-man teams, and they'd bring their ponies, and then the individuals who came to play would live in the new wing of the residence.
After 15 years of fun and frivolity, the polo days at the mansion ended in divorce. Mrs. Dupuy remained living there and eventually remarried to George Burnham, a California congressman. Until Mr. Burnham's death in 1939, they lived and entertained in the home on Ocean Boulevard. The mansion sat empty for 6 years until 1946, when it was purchased by C.E. Van Ness from Arizona. He very quietly lived in the house for 25 years until his death in 1975. The following year, a limited real estate partnership acquired the Richards Dupuy mansion from the Van Ness estate.
It had been sitting vacant for quite a few years, and our original intention looking at the house is we were probably going to tear it down. It had been basically non-functional for, like I say, at least a half dozen years. We realized this is an Irving Gill turn of the century, so we ended up keeping the house intact.
The house was then sold to Dr. and Mrs. Morton Pastor and their 7 daughters. The ravages of time and a lack of upkeep could also be clearly seen on the historic Hotel del Coronado. Fate, however, was about to intervene on behalf of both venerable buildings. The man who would return the hotel to its former splendor was born Maurice Larry Lawrence in Chicago in 1926. He lived his early childhood in a flat on top of his father's grocery store during the Depression. Larry Lawrence came to San Diego in 1953, worked in real estate development, and built the first subdivision in the Claremont area of San Diego. Ultimately, he developed more than $300 million worth of construction. He gained major local prominence in 1963 when he and fellow investors bought the then dilapidated Hotel del Coronado.
He was a very tough businessman with a very good heart. Make no mistake about it, Larry was as tough as they came in business, and he was as no-nonsense as possible. but he was extremely generous to those things and causes he believed in. He really remade the Dell. The Dell has been a symbol of the San Diego region forever, and he made the Dell into a true, thriving historic property that is recognized the world over.
While the hotel was undergoing an extensive $80 million restoration, 2 blocks away, the pastors were struggling with the challenges of maintaining an enormous house in need of major renovation.
It was a water-stained derelict. I was in it when it was vacant. The floors had been damaged by water stains. The plumbing was either non-functional or had been broken. There were chipped tiles, and the place was in unlivable condition.
To help them restore the property, the pastors turned to the San Diego Historical Society and the American Society of Interior Designers. They chose it as their 1979 showcase home, and it became one of the most popular in the series. 21 designers and numerous craftsmen breathed new life into the structure by decorating 21 separate areas for the purpose of fundraising and professional recognition. Their work may have helped to catch the attention of Larry Lawrence. He acquired the historic property in 1983. Larry Lawrence was a power figure in the California Democratic Party, as well as serving on then-Governor Clinton's National Finance Committee during his run for the '92 presidency. Mrs. Lawrence, born Shalia Davis, grew up in the horse country of West Virginia. She came to California in her early 20s. Their mutual involvement in Democratic politics brought them together, and they were married in June of 1990. In 1994, after decades of dedicated hard work for the California Democratic Party, M. Larry Lawrence was sworn in as the U.S. Ambassador to Switzerland, while Mrs. Lawrence became Special U.S. Representative to the World Conservation Union. The Coronado house on Ocean Boulevard had been sitting empty for 5 years. The restoration and repair required would fill many years of their time and energy together.
This house used to be called the Mansion, and I didn't feel that I could live in a house that people referred to as the Mansion. Just was too uncomfortable for me. Also, the house is really a manor. It's more of an English country-style manor done in the Georgian period, and it more appropriate to be considered a manor. And Crown comes from Coronado because that's where it's located. So it just developed into Coronado Manor, which means Crown Manor. He said he would like to live here, and if I would like to live here, then I should take on this project and renovate the house. And out of sheer ignorance, I said yes, not having any idea what I was getting myself into. What a renovation of this size would mean and how much it would take out of my life for what ended up being 5 years that it took to do it. The first time I saw the house, it was a disaster. The weeds were growing in what was supposed to be the front yard. It was in terrible shape, doors practically swinging from the hinges. It was in a very bad state of disrepair. And it was clear that it was going to take an awful lot of work to ever make it something that could be lived in.
I thought here was a chance to really do a magnificent restoration of a great structure that otherwise could have been torn down. Here's a person that's going to salvage and protect this piece of property.
The first thing was to take apart everything that was in the house, all of the fixtures, the plumbing fixtures, the light fixtures, and to bring in an expert to evaluate all those and to find out the quality of them, which were antiques of integrity that should be kept, which were not. I wanted to restore the house with as much architectural integrity and historically accurate as could be done.
The commitment to completely renovate was the first step, but to see the end results of their efforts is the ultimate reward. The tour begins on the ground floor of the manor, where a large central entrance and foyer separates the living room, now called the Grand Salon, on the left, from the music room to the right.
The only room that really had any feeling at all was the music room, and that's pretty much as it was. We really tried to only freshen and restore it. The lighting fixtures and all the wall paintings are as we found the house.
It's quite interesting because the soft colors in those murals tie right into the colors of the sconces that are on the wall, in the carpets and in the draperies and the upholstery on the chairs.
The Grand Salon exhibits the comfort of contemporary furnishings, set off by the splendor of the original 24-karat gold ceiling.
It's literally gold leaf, and gold leaf comes in 4 or 5 inch squares, and it's just laid on the ceiling.
It's very labor intensive and quite costly to reproduce that type of thing. I wanted this home to be welcoming, comfortable, and elegant.
On the south end of the main floor, adjacent to the music room, lies one of the home's more inviting spaces.
The room that people are, for the most part, drawn to seems to be the ocean room. We have, from our trips, collected masks from all over the world, and we decided to put them on display in that room. And people always are drawn back to that room. They love looking at the masks. They love the serenity of sitting in there and watching the aquariums and just feeling comfortable there.
They were talking in terms of having stand-up dinners, cocktail-type dinner parties for up to 200 or 250 people. So we needed a major kitchen. So on the main floor, we prepared an elaborate kitchen that could serve banquets.
The whole thing is set up that way to function efficiently with a lot of staff for huge numbers of people.
I kind of helped design this kitchen about 8 years ago. It's a nice place to work. It's a very comfortable kitchen, and at the way it's designed, I can produce a nice, elegant dinner with no problem.
The butler's pantry itself was here originally, the size of the room, and it's something that used to always be in older homes, and it's actually quite a shame, I think, today that in newer homes, for the most part, they've stopped adding butler's pantry, because if there's one thing that we all usually miss in homes, it's storage area. In the hunt room, I wanted to create a smaller area to eat in that would be for more intimate, smaller types of affairs. I wanted to have a hunt scene up there, and found an artist that was able to do that for me. And they actually created the hunt scene by painting Crown Manor in it, so that the horses would start at the front of the manor. They would proceed through the chase to catch the fox, and then return back for their brunch at the manor. And it tells the whole story around the wall. I really like English antiques a lot and collect English antiques. I like furniture that has been used, that has a worn patina to it. The fabrics, I like a lot of color. I'm not afraid of color. I don't like things to be bland. I wanted soft fabrics on the wall and rich stains on the woods and patterns on the floors and comfortable furniture surrounded by the age of the English antiques.
We traveled to Los Angeles, to San Francisco. I worked with her in London, assembling things that would have the feeling of the house itself.
Each room was assembled in its entirety before it was put together. Everything was ordered specifically to go together, or we searched and found the right pieces to go together.
The second floor of Crown Manor underwent a major architectural transition.
There were 5 or 6 bedrooms that were just, they were large, but they were ordinary bedrooms. These 2 rooms were Mrs. Dupay's chamber and Mr. Dupay's chamber with with two separate baths that were connected in between the two rooms. The second floor was completely changed into a private apartment with extreme security for Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence. Private suite that included a bedroom, a bath and dressing area, a living area or living room, dining area, a kitchen, and an office for Mr. Lawrence with connecting adjacent office for Mrs. Lawrence.
The third floor was all paneled in painted sort of 1920s board on board. There were lots of little bedrooms that had, each bedroom had a basin in it, and there must have been, 6, 8, maybe even more bedrooms up there. Oh, it's all been really gutted. It all serves different functions now.
One new function of the third floor is a fully equipped beauty salon and massage room with 2 massage tables.
My husband and I always did everything together, so we like to have our massages at the same time. It was efficiency of time as opposed to having 2 hours take up massages. We had 2 people take up 1 hour of massage.
Outside, the grounds of Crown Manor possess the same balance of old-world charm and contemporary elegance.
We've had a lot of fun with the back garden area. You can use it for so many different purposes. The sculpture in the backyard is done by Manuel Neri, who is a well-known artist from the Bay Area. The lines of it are very classical in nature. He's made it quite contemporary by his use of the paint that he's added to it. We have a sculpture in the front yard that is a horse that was done by an artist named Deborah Butterfield. The name of this piece is called Ghost. She had collected driftwood and assembled it out of pieces of driftwood. It has particularly significant meaning to me because I grew up on a horse farm showing horses all my life and have had a lifelong love of and commitment to being involved with horses. The front garden has a koi pond in it. The koi came from locally from the Golden Pond, which is a very famous place that has koi. They have been wonderful fish because they're friendly and they will come up and they'll let you pat them on the head, rub their head. They like to have their heads rubbed. The mural behind the koi pond is a reproduction of Monet's water lilies. The artist that did that did 3 similar types of tile reproductions in the outside gardens. There's another one in the Jacaranda Court that's a Renoir reproduction, and then out on the pool where the spas spill over into the pool, they did reproductions of Matisse works there.
This may not be the last renovation of Crown Manor, but certainly it will stand as one of the most extensive and complete.
Well, I hope Mr. Lawrence thought of it as his embassy on the sands in Coronado, because he really wanted an elegant, reserved house.
It became a dream for him to live in this house. He certainly has always had a commitment to restoring historical properties, as is evident with the Hotel del Coronado, and it's something that he and I shared together. I did this house for him. I wanted this house to please him, for him to love it.
This renovation of Crown Manor has returned what was always a gracious home to the elegant showplace it was meant to be. It has housed and entertained many of the world's influential dignitaries. One of the most publicized was the visit of President Bill Clinton and his family, when they enjoyed their spring vacation at the manor in 1994. For the Lawrences, the happy times together and the chance to enjoy the beautiful home they had created were cut short by the death of Larry Lawrence. He died in Bern, Switzerland at the age of 69. The house is now for sale.
I love the house so much. I put my heart into every single thing that's here, into caring about it and making it the best that I was capable of making it. And it's a big decision for me to sell the house, but I just can't see as a widow living alone, trying to be in this size house by myself. This house needs to be full of life and happiness and people, and needs to be full of activity the way that I designed it.
It's a successful restoration. It's turned a beautiful mansion into a landmark, I think. It's structurally sound. It's been beautifully done. I'm very proud of the part that I played in it. I think it was successful, and I think it helps to ensure that it'll be there for a long time to come.
The Bartlett Richards, Dupee, Van Ness, Pastor, Lawrence mansion has lived through almost a century of social activity, renovation, neglect, and love. It is a house that is forever tied to the Hotel del Coronado. From its very beginnings with Bartlett Richards and Irving Gill, to its latest incarnation by the late Ambassador and Mrs. Lawrence, it will always be an architectural reminder of San Diego's roots in the past and the distance we have traveled since the day Babcock and Story first caught sight of the island, and with one outrageous idea created a magical part of San Diego history.